I am so excited to be partnering up with Gorillas again this season. The original sexy grocery delivery app is revolutionising online shopping. Fresh food delivered to your door in minutes, catering to all your food needs. Operating in 9 countries around the world, Gorillas supports small businesses as well as local producers to bring your favourite brands to your door. Run out of wine during the dinner party? Gorillas can sort that. Run out of eggs for your Sunday morning pancakes? Gorillas can also sort that. Don't believe me when I say how great they are? Then download their app and get £10 off your first order when you spend £20. Use the code SEXY10 at checkout and thank me later. Hello and welcome to the Crazy Sexy Food Podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Harley-Young. This podcast is all about the love of food and how it plays a part in our lives. I sit down with well-known personalities, food experts, chefs, and people who just love their food to find out all about their life, career, and their favourite tastes along the way. Today I'm joined by Adjoa Andoh, the British film, television, and theatre actress. She has successfully bridged the gap between all 3 mediums of performance, from Invictus to Doctor Who to Richard III. In recent times, she is most well known for her portrayal of Lady Danbury in the hugely successful Netflix show Bridgerton, which has taken the world by storm. I'm so excited to be sitting down with this brilliant, successful lady and find out all about her life in food. Adjoa, welcome to Crazy Sexy Food.
What a lovely intro. Thank you, Hannah. Very glad to be here.
How are you, first and foremost?
The sun really shone this morning and I got a sniff of spring. So I'm delighted. I think February is the month where we're all a bit like, come on now, that's long enough. I'd like a bud. There's some snowdrops, good. We're going in the right direction. And the sun came out and the dog did the whole of the park. So
oh, I love that. I know that feeling, and it gives you sort of heart flutters.
Yeah,
because it's a feeling of hope.
Yeah, it is. I mean, nature is just very, very gracious doing that stuff of going, do you know what? I'll be back next year. Hang on in there. We're going to come round again. And
Totally.
I think we've all sort of lent into that quite a bit in the last little while.
Yeah. So where are you recording from?
I am on the sofa in the living room. It's a sunny day.
Oh, yeah.
The windows are filtered.
Beautiful.
The books are there and it's comfy.
Lovely. And I mean, you've been very busy. We've been trying to organise this recording for a very long time with your team. So what have you been doing? You know, what have you been filming? What's going on?
So I've been getting ready to prep for Bridgerton 3 starts in 10 seconds. That'll be most of the year. I'm also the queen of audiobook land, so I'm relentless. I record bajillions of audiobooks. I've been doing audiobooks. I'm writing. I'm producing a couple of shows, a crime show and a historical show. So we're in the writer's room doing that. So I did Richard II. That's one I've done, but hopefully I'm directing Richard III in the new year. So I'm prepping all that as well. And yeah, it's been fairly...
Busy woman.
And I'm back to Antony and Cleopatra on the radio. So I'm going to be playing Cleopatra. So,
how fabulous.
Yeah, so that'll be nice. So
I'll
it's all...
definitely be tuning into that.
It's all going on.
It's all going on. So obviously this is a food podcast and I always ask my guests to kind of kick things off. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I am very dull and repetitive. So this morning I had Fage Greek yogurt, full fat.
Yeah.
And I have that every morning, pretty much. Either that or scrambled eggs. And
do you just
coffee.
Have the yogurt on its own?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And full fat yogurt, and then coffee made with my little Italian percolator, and all my daily drugs.
Sounds a bit like my breakfast.
It's not very appetizing. It's not very exciting. I like it, and
it does the job, right?
It does the job, and it sets me up for the day. So yeah, it's more fuel than glamour.
Totally. So I want to take it back to your childhood a bit. You were born in Bristol in a very beautiful place called Clifton, which I know very well, by the way.
To you.
And then you grew up in Gloucestershire, I believe. I want to know what life was like growing up. I want to know who was cooking, what was on the table. Was food important?
So yes, my mother's family lived in Clifton. I was born in Clifton. We lived in a little place called Whitchurch, which is on the outskirts of Bristol, and then we moved to Leeds. So we lived in Leeds till I was 4, and then we moved to the Cotswolds, by which time I had a very strong Yorkshire accent. This is the mid-60s. It was tricky. We were the only Africans in the village. Well, actually, my father was the only African. My brother, my mum's from Liverpool. Food was, what would I say about food? So we had a real mixture of cuisine, because my dad brought a lot of Ghanaian cuisine with him. So I grew up thinking things like we would chew the marrow out of the middle of bones. I thought everybody did that. It was just us. Dad would make corned beef hash, was a favourite. So my mum was a teacher. My dad was in exile. He did all sorts of random jobs and ended up working for British Aerospace as an accountant. So money was not super plentiful. And it was the 60s. So everything was sort of home cooked. You didn't buy food, There was no Deliveroo. People didn't really go out. You cooked stuff, and stuff lasted all week. So we had corned beef hash with a lot of nutmeg and pepper and spices and rice. That was a bit of a staple with Dad. My mum's liver and bacon was second to none. We did the Sunday tea time homemade cake. Mum would bake on a Saturday morning. My brother and I would fight over who was going to get the bowl or who would get the spoon. And she'd have to be really judicious and alternate, or else they'd be like, he had the bowl last week. Would go on. So
That's a very important conversation, actually.
So Mum was a great baker. She was also a super busy teacher. So I do remember the bleak years of smash potato, fish fingers, and hot tin tomatoes.
Wow. Okay.
Not great. But she could make a fantastic roast. She learned how to cook chicken the Ghanaian way from when Dad's sisters would come, which basically just meant more seasoning. Instant whip, Angel Delight. These were the new flash fast foods.
Yeah.
Sunday tea time, it would be cling peaches and ideal milk, or it might be fruit cocktail in heavy syrup. Everything was heavy syrup. And salad sandwiches, my mother was very good, which was basically salad with salad cream in a sandwich. She would chop everything up really small. She had scissors. She would always chop the spring onions with scissors.
I love that. So actually, that's a brilliant idea.
It is, because it just gets it all nice and.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So she butterfly cakes, flapjack. I learned to bake and cook. I had a children's cookbook. I was very good on the cheese straws. And there were lots of things that would go around the village. There would be okay, so and so's got the mother for ginger beer. All right, I'll get it off then. Do you want some? Yeah, all right. So then ginger beer would sweep the village like wildfire. Then another time it'd be, yeah, we're doing yogurt. Do you want any of the, I can't remember what it's called, the basic yogurty thing? And then everybody would be making yogurt. My dad always had, there was always homemade wine and beer stills in the airing cupboard, popping and exploding random. And then we grew lots of vegetables in the garden. But everything was, so my best friend, her dad was the butcher, the Honeyborns down the road. And when we were bored, we would go and watch her older brother, Christopher, wringing chickens' necks and hanging them up. So I'd hang them up on a hook. We'd just sit on the wall watching them. Christopher would do that. There was dairy farming and sheep farming. So, I went out with pig farmers and dairy farmers. I could milk a cow by hand at a push still. And if you wanted your vegetables, you walked up to the farm and to Robinson's farm, and you knocked at the back door with your purple carrier, fabric bag that Mummy gave you on Saturday morning with the change. And you'd see Mrs. Robinson. What do you want, my dear? Mum says, can we have 5 pounds of potatoes? Righto. She'd get the metal scales out and the dish, and she'd weigh the potatoes. Then there'd be the onions and whatever brassicas were. So, like, you understood where food came from.
God, I think that's probably one of the best answers I've ever had from this question. You've just painted it so beautifully. I sort of felt like I was there with you.
It was like,
I tell you what, as well, it's funny when you talk about things like the knowledge you had of food. I feel like the youth of today don't really, especially like in the inner cities, don't really understand, what it used to be like.
well, and what it is still like, it's just sort of pushed. I mean, obviously, factory farming is the devil, and I hate it. I think all sentient creatures should be having a life, and if food is super cheap, it's cost somebody or some creature something somewhere else down the line. Whether it's
100%.
Trafficked people picking vegetables, or veal calves never seeing the light of day, or whatever it is. So I just think, and obviously I'm a fair trade patron, so I'm all about food production and food workers' livelihoods and animal welfare and all of that stuff. And I think that probably comes a bit from just where I grew up around people working super hard to make good food for us. And we all understood that you ate meat twice a week if you were lucky, because it's costly and it should be costly. And there are other ways of getting protein. And I just think we need to, as you say, we need to reconnect with the means of production and what it means in terms of an animal's life, and the hard worker farmers and crop growers and all of that, and the environment as well. We've lost so many insects and indigenous animals in the last 50 years. Like, we have lost like a ridiculous percentage, something like 60%, because of the high intensive ways we've farmed and stripped the countryside. And I think I kind of don't blame farmers. I just think it's a whole, in fact, I definitely don't blame farmers. It's a whole industrialized way of making food. And I think people are under enormous pressure just to break even as farmers. So it's about pricing. It's a whole conversation then.
No, but it is a conversation that I think needs to be had a hell of a lot more. And even sort of like in my little day-to-day life, I eat meat, I eat everything, but and it's not necessarily about the fact that I want to cut down, but I would rather eat less in a week and spend more money on the pieces that I'm buying, because when a chicken is sort of £5.
Well, you're eating hormones.
I'd like to know what happened for it to get to my table for £5.
I know, and I just think that I suppose the big conversation is we at the moment we're in a state where people are making choices about whether they're going to heat their homes or eat. Food banks are rising exponentially now. You can't even go to a food bank without a referral anymore. You have to go to a food hub or a food club, because that is how much pressure people are under to eat. And the disparity of wealth and poverty in this country has, in the last 10 years, has gone through the sky. So I'm very conscious of going, I advocate fair trade because they get a premium, and it just costs a little bit more. And you think, actually people are struggling to eat at all. Premium schmemium, quality schmolity. But actually what is happening is people who are at the margins financially are being obliged to eat the poorest quality food, and that is the one with the most additives, the chickens that are cheap, that are pumped full of hormones and water, where they've had a horrible life and that their bodies are adrenalized to crazy degrees, and we're all ingesting that. So I just feel like we need to have a really big conversation about, because food is our fuel. What we put into our bodies impacts how we live, our mental health, the quality of growth, our attention span, our temperament, all these. It's like food is it's the thing.
It's the starting point of everything. It is the base of everything we do in life.
So I just think there are really important conversations. People need to understand poverty and the grinding material daily terror of not having enough money to feed yourself or your loved ones. And I just think there's a huge conversation that we have to have as a nation about how do we want to be nourishing our most vulnerable people, and what is the ethos of that for the whole society, and how do we, now we're not in Europe as well, how do we keep farming standards up when we want to have trade deals, and the trade deals are going to be with countries where maybe they don't have the same level of food standards that we have got through being in Europe and that have been hammered out over decades, and now we have to do the deal. So does that mean we're going to get, poorly treated animals traveling thousands of miles to be cheaply on our tables? Are we going to have GM crops? There's
it's a I know it
huge
is
conversation.
Yeah, it's a huge conversation, and but one that absolutely needs to happen more than it already is, so to speak. Something you touched on, obviously your father was Ghanaian, is Ghanaian. I know a lot about Ghanaian food. I love Ghanaian food, but for anyone that might not know much about it, talk to me about it, and talk to me about some of the dishes that you were eating as a child if he was cooking Ghanaian food.
It's about, quite often it's the sensibility of flavors. So I was in Ghana with Dad just before the pandemic. We got in under the wire beginning of 2020. He lives in our house in the Cotswolds, and then he goes out to Ghana for like 2 or 3 months a year, usually the dreary months. So in February, you'll quite often find him in Ghana.
He's got the perfect setup there.
And he cooked. So he's nearly 90. And he cooked a really simple meal of onions, local tomatoes, and yam. It's all it was, and a little bit of it probably had a little bit of Maggi in it and a little bit of pepper. Really simple, quite quick to make, but the smell of it and the taste of it, because he hadn't cooked me that dish since I was a kid. I sat down at the table with, my grown ass children there as well. So, and my brother, and I was suddenly transported from Ghana to this little village in the Cotswolds, because that's when I ate it as a child. And it made me cry, because it was such a strong memory of being little and Dad cooking this. And I tried to reproduce it at home, and I can't. It's close, but it's not quite Dad's.
Yeah.
And I think we do have that with particular dishes, that those we love to have cooked for us, that we can get close, but it's not, you don't quite. So anyway, so that's a really simple dish. Plantain. So I suppose I'm a pescatarian. I haven't eaten meat since I was 16. And so I'd go to Ghana, and my aunts are all fabulous cooks. And my auntie Nana, hey, you don't want meat. And she would make me a savoury plantain loaf. So it would be, I suppose it'd be like a nut loaf or something, but with plantain. So just gorgeous onions and garlic and chili and peppers and a bit of Maggi is like the law in Ghana. So all smushed together and then baked into a sort of loaf shape, and then she'd carve it. So I would have that.
That sounds incredible.
It was so delicious.
Gosh.
And when we were kids and we'd go, they'd be like, bruni, which means white person, foreigner, or English person. So my brother and I, bruni, the white people had arrived. Okay, so which meant that for my brother, they'd look at him, they'd be like, we'll make him some chips, yam chips. So just so that we'd feel at home, because chips, you have chips, you like it, isn't it? So the chips. So we'd have yam chips, and you'd be like, this isn't a chip.
No.
This is the yam. That's not a chip. It's not a chip. Eat it. eat it.
Yeah.
So there'd be that. There'd be fufu and gari. It's pounded cassava made in different ways, and not my favorite. Neither of them, don't really like them. One of Dad's cousins, he knew I didn't really like fufu, and so he'd be. I remember we went to visit them in Tema, which is a harbour town up the coast, and he was like, okay, here's your fufu. And I ate it for a bit, and he just watched me, and then went, you want some more? And I was like, because I was like a polite child, yes, please. And okay, like, and then he'd sit there for hours, sort of trying to get through it. So that's not a favorite. That's not a favorite. But anything Scotch bonnet peppers, anything okra, all the vegetables. Just very, very happy. Kelewele, which is it's just a different form of plantain, which I love. Okay. So my standard meal when I get to Ghana is jollof rice and a club beer, because club, not Star, club is the Ghanaian brewery. So you have to have the club beer and the jollof rice with shito on top. And shito paste is it's sort of prawn. It's like prawn or crab crushed with in oil with lots of pepper, and it all goes down. And you don't need much, but it just gives it that slight sort of, like if you're eating Spanish olives and they've been in anchovies, that sort of extra kick. So you put a bit of shito paste.
I am salivating.
It's so delicious. So delicious.
I wonder if I can get that in London somewhere.
You get it in Brixton Market. There's a shop in Brixton Market that they do little tubs of shito that are like gold, and they'll do you a jollof as well. So just lovely stuff. And fish, tilapia fish. Fish in Ghana is fantastic, especially if you're living along the coast. So that would be sort of Ghanaian. Oh, and then of course you just go out to the garden and pick a mango off the tree, or an avocado off the tree.
Why wouldn't you?
Oh, I still can't get past that. And pawpaw, I always have pawpaw for breakfast in Ghana.
Wow, gosh. Well, you sold that to all of us. I think we're done. So something that I found quite interesting when I was doing a bit of my research about you is that you originally set out to become a lawyer, but then decided to pursue your acting career, which, I would say was quite a risk. The acting world is a very cutthroat industry. How did your parents feel about that? How did,
Well, let's be honest. I was being a lawyer because I'm a good African daughter. And
that's why I'm asking the question.
I'm quite chippy, and I wanted to save the world from the bad people with my loyally silky skills. However, what I really loved was dressing up and pretending to be other people. But I grew up in the Cotswold. I mean, when I was 6 in the village hall, because we didn't have cinemas or anything. This is 2 buses a week. Laurie Lee, Cider with Rosie, that's like a documentary as far as I'm concerned. They one year in the village hall, which was like, the village hall was like, it was this metropolis centre of all things entertaining. There might be a panto in there. There'd be a Christmas party for the kids. There'd be jumble sales, and anything that was villagey would happen in the village hall. So they set up a little screen. I think it was somebody's dad's slideshow screen. It's probably, I don't know, 5 foot by 5 foot on a pole, and you'd have to unscroll it and put it up. And then they screamed, and all the children sat on the floor, and they screamed, "Annie, get your gun!" Oh, my mind was blown. It was like I was like in the poshest cinema ever. It's just all of us sitting cross-legged on the floor watching this amazing film. And I think I really knew I wanted to be an actor from then. But I didn't. How did you do that? I don't know how you do that stuff. So I was in all the school plays at primary school and secondary school. I would go to, if there was a local amateur dramatic society production, I'd be there. Pantos, I still love pantos. It's my favourite art form, I think. And so I would be the kid who I loved Pippi Longstocking. I would put red tights on my hair. I'd get my mother's eyeliner and give myself freckles. I'd have the stripy socks, and I would go around in clogs and have adventures. It's the batshit
Oh
child.
my God,
And
that's amazing.
so I always loved doing all that stuff. I was always dressing up. I used to make books. I would stitch them, and then I'd have quizzes and dot to dots and stories and fashion pages and dear problem pages and all of that. I was always making things and doing stuff, and I would direct. I remember directing Gustav Holst's The Planet Suite. I choreographed it and got all the kids in it. We directed a play. We did Blithe Spirit. I'd never seen it. Somebody had vaguely told me about it. Charged people entrance money. There was a lot of net curtains and lights going on and off. So I was always doing that stuff, but I didn't think that one could have a career in it. So we were allowed to do drama O-level. That's all damn. If we were doing A-levels, because it wasn't considered a proper subject. So we'd done all the school plays, and then I did drama O-level. And I went, and this is in the upper six, I was very depressed by this stage. Life was tricky. I was doing the Oxbridge entrance exam. My parents were getting divorced. I'd gone up a year early because I was a bright kid. So I think I was emotionally too young to be carrying A-levels, Oxbridge, extra O-levels, divorcing parents, anorexia, the whole 9 yards. And I went to Bristol Old Vic and saw a play called Plenty by David Hare, starring Kate Nelligan. And it was a play about a young woman who is sent overseas to do special ops during the Second World War. She's a secretary in London. She goes over there. She's brilliant. She speaks French. That's why they sent her over. She helps the resistance. She falls in love. And then the war ends and she comes back to England, and nobody wants a woman as smart and bright as she is. And she ends up going back to being a secretary. And it's a pretty depressing, sad end. But I just remember my little ears going dunk, and I wept, and I felt something, and I was really with her. And maybe because I was feeling depressed, I sort of got that. But there was something that I understood, that theatre had the power to pull you into someone else's story and let that story resonate for you and make you think about who you are and how you direct your life. And there was something about the moment when she was in France and suddenly a light bulb had gone on and she went, I'm being my best self. I am brilliant at this. I need to pursue what I'm good at, not what I'm told I should be doing. And there was something in that I really sort of stuck in my back pocket. And then cut to messed up my A-levels, reset my A-levels in Bristol at Filton Technical College. Then worked for Lloyds Bank for a year because I was never going to do any more education. I hated education. Did a year at Lloyds Bank, hated Lloyds Bank, rubbish at numbers, till never balanced. People were like, Adj, is it you? I'd be like, yeah, probably. Not favourite. So by that point, I was like, all right, I'll apply to do the law degree, anything, just get me out of here. So then I applied to do, latterly, I went and did a law degree at Bristol Polytechnic, which had a fantastic course. 2 years into that, I joined Bristol Black Women's Group. I'd been to Greenham Common. We'd encircled the base. I was getting into my feminism and my realizing there was a whole world of literature by people from Africa and Southeast Asia and Black America, and it was like my eyes were opened. And there was a woman in my Black Women's Group who was an American actress, and she was living in Bristol. And I was like, I'm leaving my law degree. I hate law. Don't want to do it anymore. I went and told my head of department I was leaving. He said, I wish I'd done that at your age. I'm learning the violin. Do you want to come to a music class? And I went, okay. So I started learning the cello. And then Deborah from the Black Women's Group said, I'm running some classes. You should come and take my class. So I took her class. And she got funded by Ken Livingstone and the GLC in 1984 to do a show. You need to come to London and audition for my show. So I came up to London. I was working in a legal aid centre at the time, and auditioned and got the job. Came up to London, stayed with a girlfriend, thought I was going to be in London for 2 months and then I'd go back, and just never left. So my father wept when I packed in the law degree, as I would do if any of my children had packed in their degree. Just finish it. And that whole immigrant thing of we have to be twice as good, doesn't matter where you've immigrated from. it's that mentality is we've got to be, you've got to get the qualifications. Education is key. All the things I would say to my kids. And I was like, I can't, I want to be an actress. So, I think there's a little bit of him that's still waiting for me to finish my law degree.
I was just going to say, because obviously, the rest is history and here we are. I wonder how he feels now.
I know he's proud of me. He's told me once, quite recently.
Wow.
And didn't say I'm proud of you. He said, people say I should be proud of you. And I am. And that was it. And that was like, so
Wow.
I don't know. I think maybe he's given up on having a child with a proper profession, because my brother's a musician. So my parents just like epic fail on proper job.
They got a double whammy there.
Dreadful. But, my mum was a choreographer and a history teacher, and she loved storytelling and all of that. And my dad played in folk bands all the time, all through his life. So, they couldn't pursue it as a full-time creative career. Yeah. But
you mentioned, when you went to go see that theatre performance, it sort of had your epiphany moment. And I've actually, because, as I mentioned in the intro, you've sort of successfully bridged the gap between these three, mediums of acting. Is theatre still your favourite medium?
So I do lots of radio as well. And they all have their different demands. So I love radio because all you've got is your voice. You can't do any of your funny walks or your raised eyebrows or any of the shticks. It's you and the listener's ear. And it's incredibly intimate. And it allows you to work in a really intimate way, which I love. It's very nuanced, and you really have to focus on how you transmit all of a story just through your voice. So your emotions have to be on point, because so much comes through you vocally if you're authentically in that emotional place. So it's very tiring, and I find it creatively very rewarding. That's radio. Theatre, you cannot dig yourself out by saying, cut, can we go again? You get in a mess, baby. You just have to get yourself out of it. And also, what happens in one performance, a wet Wednesday afternoon performance in the middle of winter, is going to be a very different proposition from a sunny evening in August. The audience vibration is different. Your vibration is different. Even if the story's the same, it'll resonate in a slightly different way. And I love the uniqueness of every theatre performance. And I love to talk to the audience if that's, appropriate for the part. And I love getting their responses. I was at the theatre last night. I was at the Lyric in Hammersmith, and a new play, first time writer, called Running with Lions. Terrific cast, a very diverse audience, and the audience was so with the story at certain moments people are just laughing, not by anything someone said, but just an expression or because they recognize something in the story from their own life. It's and then we're all weeping at the same time, so there's something very communal about a theatre production. Audiences, they say the if you put a bunch of people in a room together, their hearts will start beating at the same pace. That's like, we're supposed to be in communion with each other. If you stick a bunch of women on tour, all our periods will happen at the same time. It's just like the human body wants to go with another human body. So theatre has got that magic, that that we've all come here to go through this story together. I love that. The audience has made a commitment to come. You've made the commitment. There's crew, there's ushers, there's a whole endeavour to just tell a tiny story. I think that's beautiful. And I suppose in a larger way, film and TV does that as well. But, I remember I was in Casualty for 3 years, and Derek, who plays Charlie in Casualty, he's been in it since it started in the 80s. But what I got from Derek was every day he came to work, he would try, because, the stories are sort of limited. They're limited by the environment, and people are generally poorly, and somebody's upset about the poorly people. And the staff are overworked, there's not enough money. That's kind of it. Sometimes you get better. Sometimes you die.
Sometimes you don't.
So there's a sort of, the frame is quite limited.
Yeah.
But Derek would have this thing where every day you came to work and you had to tell the story like it had never been told before. So there's something about, how do you refresh your approach every day? How do you stay absolutely in the moment and not telephoning it in or by the numbers, even when it's in a frame that you know really well because you've been shooting the show for however long? So I thought there's a real discipline about that I loved. And for me, that's about honouring. A writer has sat down at some point with a whole episode to follow through, and there's been a whole team doing that. Somebody's designed it, somebody's cast it, people are learning lines, replacing lenses, whatever. There's a whole endeavour that goes into that. So, and then there's the viewer who's bothering to tune in. So you have to honour everyone's endeavour. So that thing about trying to keep things fresh and on point and being in the moment and being authentic to the emotion and all of that stuff, it's a big discipline when you're on a show that's like every day you're in the makeup chair, it's 5 a.m, so I love the discipline of that regular gig. And then when you get to do a movie or something like that, you can just you're just a tiny jigsaw piece in an enormous cog. There is going to be CGI, there's going to be music, there's going to be grading, or, there's all sorts of things going on. And it's just being part of one narrative that you're never going to tell again, and absolutely owning your moment within that. And, doing all the stuff, knowing your lines, paying attention, being generous with other actors, all the technical stuff. I love I'm dyspraxic, so balance, props, all of that stuff, nightmare. You have to give me my props in advance, or else I would just be like, sorry, I dropped it. Can you do that again? So I love the technical discipline of going, I have to hit my mark, the camera's there, all of that. And you have to do that without any of it being seen, because you're just somebody that walked into a room and said something. So I kind of love the challenge of that as well. This is a long-assed way to say I don't have a favourite medium, but for me, it's all about the material. I hate doing poorly crafted work where you feel like I'm having to work really hard to just patch this over and make it look average. That's why I love Shakespeare. You have to live up to the language. You have to have your A game going so that you can be as good as the material. So I'll work in any medium if the material's good.
Yeah. I think that was a very diplomatic, sort of well executed answer.
Thank you very much.
Speaking of film, TV, streaming, obviously before we get back to the food, I can't not talk about Bridgerton, where you play Lady Danbury.
Yes.
I mean, this is also could be a whole other conversation, but it really took the world by storm. And
yeah, it did.
How shocked were you by the success of it? Because I know you guys filmed it quite.
We finished filming, so that story I told you about
before everything happened in the world.
You know the story I told you about my dad and yams in Ghana.
Yes.
I literally left filming Bridgerton and went to Ghana. So that's when we finished filming season 1, literally before everything shut down. So we had this weird thing of, so that was February. Then it dropped on Christmas Day, by which time we're in an entirely different universe from the one in which we'd filmed the first season. I mean, like, so...
You couldn't have made it up.
Honestly, nobody... You would... No, go rewrite that. No, that's just too incredible. So when I signed up for Bridgerton, I knew 3 things that excited me. Shonda Rhimes is a goddess.
That was going to be my next question.
on so many levels, as a human being, as a creative artist, as a woman that's made through her own vision an empire of storytelling. She's a goddess, and I can't speak too highly. So to work with her, I was thrilled, beyond thrilled. When my kids were small, Grey's Anatomy was the law. It was Grey's Anatomy.
It still is in this household.
And The Simpsons. That was it. McDreamy was all over the TV.
Yes.
or just we loved it. So I was sort of thrilled to be in the Shonda verse, as it were. Then Julia Quinn's books are enormously successful and enormously popular. So I knew that there would be an appetite from the Shonda folk and the Quinn folk for the show. And then for me, my mum's a history teacher. I love history. Mum's a bit of a medieval maniac on the history front. Our house was just full of tapestry, and she's got a bit of Bayeux tapestry. I mean, obviously reproduction, but I mean, like a huge piece of she, So I grew up with history, and I love history, and I love all the history, not just the Nazis and the Tudors, which is what seems to be taught today. So I was thrilled to be doing a historical drama because, honestly, as an actor of colour, bonnets and gown shows would come along and you'd go, oh, great. Okay, well, that's another show I won't be put up for. And even though people of colour have been, this is a trading island, all the trades, good and bad, there have always been people from all over the world passing across these shores. So to have a show that isn't a documentary series, but is romantic, glamorous, glossy, on steroids with its locations and its frocks and its weirdy soundtracks. That is it a pop song? No, it's a quintet. No, it is a pop song. All of that level of stuff going on, to be able to go, and there were people of colour on this island, and Queen Charlotte did have African heritage.
But this is what's so interesting, and I was probably a bit naive to it before I read more about it.
Why would you know it's not taught?
But exactly, that era, it's factual. It wasn't that Shonda or anyone sort of came in and wanted to create something. It was already it was already there.
Yeah, and London, not even the country, London had 20,000 free black people living in London.
Yeah.
They were mainly around St. Giles. They were called the Blackbirds of St. Giles. That was the area that people lived in. And people who'd fought in the Civil War, who'd been slaves, who had been given their freedom if they joined the British, people who had bought themselves out of slavery, people who were traders from Africa, the Asia, China, the East Indies, the Southeast, I mean, like all over. So I love that the show, obviously, it's not demographically precise. There are probably more people of colour at a ball than you would have seen at a ball, but you would have seen some. And it's not a documentary. So it's just being sort of hyped up fabulous as well. But it's asking the questions. And so when people go, well, this is ridiculous, is this just colourblind casting? I go, it's not colourblind casting, because if it were, some of the Bridgerton children would be not white, for example. Or, somebody of colour might have a child of colour of a different race, or a white child. So it's not colourblind casting, but it's consciously thinking about folding in race and other things I love. It has women in there who don't want to be a chattel and be married off, who might want to have a fabulous writing career or do something else with their lives. There are gay stories slowly fluttering to. So it's just like, it's the world, because the world has always been the world, but now we have better plumbing and antibiotics.
Yeah.
But people have always been people, and so from that point of view, I love doing the show, and I knew long ass answer.
No, love it.
But I knew that there was something fabulous about it, and personally, Lady Danbury just sort of jumped off the page at me, and she reminds me of my mum, my fabulous mother, who is just, I mean, my mum was in Austria working with refugees after the war, helping to build homes and find people somewhere to live. She married an African man against her family's wishes in the early 60s. My mum is a curious, open, excitable woman. And she's tall and she wears hats. So Lady Danbury's hat is absolutely all about my mum. And
I love that.
She's just fabulous. My mum is fabulous. And, she's still on the Civic Society and the WI and doing everything in her 80s. And I rang her last night. She was like, I can't talk. I'm on soup and puds. Got to go. She's on soup and puds. So
love it.
So, so I knew that Lady Danbury had a sort of dynamic energy to her that I was really excited about. And she, she reminds me of my mum and my dad's sisters, the fabulous aunties in Ghana, and all those stalwart women, actually, who just take what life gives them and try and make something delightful from it.
Well, I think you executed it perfectly, and I'm a huge fan, may I say.
Oh, thank you.
I speak to a lot of musicians, and I'm always fascinated by what they have to eat when they're on tour, or what they can kind of just grab by the wayside. Talk to me about what food is like on set.
Food on tour. Oh, well, okay. So I have been touring since 1984. So life for a vegetarian / pescatarian has changed considerably.
I bet
I mean, it used to be baked potatoes and beans, or a fried egg. Do you want a fried egg? Chips and beans and a fried egg. It was really. We got some fried onions, some mushrooms. It was
dire.
It was pretty limited. So in my head, still to this day, I always have food with me, just in case I'm somewhere and I'm like. So I will always have almonds with me. I will always have a cafetiere and coffee, because I can't be doing instant coffee, or we haven't got the coffee on yet. Or
no, none of that. None of that.
Especially if it's been a 4:30 pickup, and like. So and I will. I've even got a travel kettle. My mother-in-law got me a travel kettle, so I'm all good to go on my caffeine fix. I always take my yogurt with me, because I never know. Food on and I quite often take my own lunch as well. I'll often take a salad, a lump of cheese, an avocado. I don't what's ever in the fridge and handy that's not going to spill.
But if you're filming sort of not near to home, what are you then doing? I'm
finding the shop where I can buy all that stuff.
Okay.
I'm just like, so if I'm on tour, I have to have a fridge in my hotel room.
I was about to say,
because I have to be able to put the stuff somewhere. And funny things. I remember I was at the RSC when Pizza Express emerged, and they would stay open till 11 o'clock. So Pizza Express around the land became the actor's friend, because you could skid in and get a late supper at Pizza Express. We were like, red wine and beer and pizza. I've just done the show. So yeah, it's like these things that come along and you're like, oh. Or the town where they've got a Cafe Nero, so you can get a decent espresso. Just ridiculous things, all that stuff. And across the world, I'm like, where's that deli in Moscow that you said was good for blah, or all that sort of stuff. So that's great. And some shoots you do, the catering is out of this world. So when I worked with Clint Eastwood, the catering,
I bet it was.
And they didn't do rolling days. So a rolling day means that you don't stop for lunch. So you're sort of eating
on the go,
your tinfoil thing as you. So that the catering was stunning. It was in a marquee. It was South Africa, so everything was fresh. The fish was amazing. The fruit, the vegetables, the salad. It was just so. And then other times I think I recognise these beans from 2 days ago. We're having them in a different way today.
It kind of surprises me a little bit. You think, with some of the... Am I being really naive? But I think, with some of the budgets, do you not think that they would up the ante a bit with the food and the catering?
Well, you would think so. And for me, I always think, people are doing unbelievably long days.
Well, that's
and
what I'm
having
thinking.
to stay super concentrated for a long time and stopping for your lunch. Lunch becomes a highlight of the day. I'm not saying that we're down a salt mine or anything, because we're absolutely not. We're faffing about in frocks. But and it's just an easy psychological human wrangling win to me, is to give people delicious food. but you're having to do it on industrial scales, and you might be in a windswept boggy field in the middle of who knows where. So it's really hard for caterers to keep it moving all the time and keep it fabulous. But I think for me, that's always a big psychological win. And doing things, I remember when I was at Casualty, loads of us just sort of going, I don't want cake. And I know the crew want cake and sandwiches in the tea break because they want some good carbohydrates to keep them going. But I don't want that because it makes me sluggish. I want nuts and fruit and vegetables and, you know, give us a bit of hummus and some carrot sticks or something for a snack, because then you're not digesting these heavy carbs and feeling like, okay, what was my line? But that sort of, you know, so it's quite a juggle that you have to satisfy everybody's.
But it's also what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation about, you know, food and our stomachs being the basis of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and if you're, you know, when you guys are filming, you're doing crazy hours. So if anything, if I was head of all of these productions, food would be number one for me up on the sort of scale of what we're prioritizing.
It's like the psycho soothing element that you can make be great or make be. God, this food, honestly, you know, which is sort of the opposite of being, you know, having a highlight in your day. So, yeah.
And then on the flip side, when you are home and you're sort of not filming or you're not sort of around the world, what are your specialities at home?
Well, I have to confess straight up, because my kids would laugh if they knew I was doing a food podcast. They'd be like, because I will just eat cheese out the packet. And, you know,
I don't judge that.
And a bag of rocket and eat that out of the packet as well. It's like, I can't be asked. The thing is, I had 3 children. There's a 10-year gap between the first and the second, and then 2 in blindingly quick succession. Nobody would plan those things. And so I just felt like for decades I was doing, okay, eat your broccoli. Okay, no, yes, you can when you've had your... I just felt like I was doing that for decades, and I lost the will to live somewhere. And also, you know, I was working full time, and my husband was busy, and we were, you know, it's like, oh, I burnt the fish fingers. Never mind, put some ketchup on. They'll never know. You know, the kids would say it was a lot of burnt, you know, veggie nuggets, because I bought them all at vegetarian, and then of course, as soon as my son could get to a McDonald's, he was gone. But if I'm cooking for a dinner party or I have time, and it's not, you know, get some fuel in them, get them out the door, then I do enjoy it. And I remember actually when I just had one, and I was young and full of energy, I used to throw lavish birthday parties for Jessie, and I'd make all the foods that were like birthday foods. So I do homemade guacamole with, you know, nice. Lemon and chili, and I would do strawberry mousse that my mum made for my birthday parties, which is strawberry jelly and then tinned strawberries and cream, and you whip it, you froth it all up, and then the jelly slightly harder than you would normally do, so that when you've added the cream in, it comes to a nice, whack it in the fridge. That would do that. I love a sherry trifle. It's mainly cream and sherry, let's be honest. And I try to put some nice fruit in, but I don't care.
I'm not there for that.
The custard is full of cream. The cream is full of sherry. The sponge fingers are full of sherry. Yeah. And there's some fruit. And that, if I was going to guillotine, that would be my last meal. Yeah. Sherry trifle all the way.
Really? That's interesting.
Love that. But then I love mummy salad dressing. Always gets a thumbs up from my quite picky. I mean, my eldest child is going to be 36 this year, so they're not babies. And my salad dressing is olive oil, organic cider vinegar, tamari, chili flakes, maybe a tiny bit of honey, lots of chopped garlic and whole grain mustard, and just give it a good shake. And you can make any sort of salad you want and whack a bit of that on, and it's...
I'm going to make that.
Yeah. So I love salads with raw broccoli and spinach and raw green beans and avocado and tomatoes, spring onions, scissored, and
scissors.
So all that sort of, but any old vegetable, chuck any vegetable in and put a salad dressing on it. It's great. Or raw sprouts, chopped up, all of that. Just
I love like Brussels sprouts.
yeah,
I love Brussels
I
sprouts. I
love
love
Brussels
raw
sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
I love them raw. I love them steamed. I don't like them
Yeah.
overcooked.
No,
Who does?
God forbid.
But they are delicious. I could eat sprouts all year round.
Yeah, same.
Fried with a bit of butter and garam masala.
Oh, oh.
Mm,
Gosh, we're getting all the tips today.
mm.
I'm liking this. I need to write all this down.
Yeah. So I love all that. But I like making a good chip as well. Super crispy on the outside, fluffy in the middle.
What's your secret to a good chip?
Chop the chips up and then I steam them a little bit.
Ah.
And then I give
what
them
oil are you using to
then I
cook
give them a
them
bit of
in?
a shake. I'm using olive oil.
Okay.
Not extra virgin, just
Like
yeah,
normal, like cooking olive oil.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So would you say you have a pretty healthy relationship with food in general?
No, I was anorexic in my teens, and but I understand. I understand, and I see it all the time with not just young girls, actually young boys as well. It's not about being thin. It's about having some control over your life. When you feel your life is out of control, I've seen it a lot with people who have parents who have got quite high status jobs, or where they have to be good children and behave well and all that sort of thing. And you can't control much of that, but you can control what goes into your mouth. And then it's a way of giving you power in a way. Even if it's the power with your freaked out parents going, just eat something, you're like. So I think there's something around food that's about about withholding food from yourself, that's about feeling vulnerable. And I suppose excessive eating does the same thing. There's sorts of different ways of trying to shield. So I wouldn't say that I've always had a good relationship with food, but I think what I understand for me now is that I only eat the food I like now. It's one of the great things about being a grown-up. I've always gone, I can have trifle for my breakfast and for my main course, but then
no one's going to tell me otherwise.
No one's going to tell me otherwise, because I bought the trifle, I made the trifle, my trifle. But I think it's that thing of going, what am I putting into my body that's going to help me? Because I'm a human being from my neck down as well, and the whole thing needs to function. So what helps and what doesn't help, and then work out what it is for your metabolism and try and think about that. I'm also, because I'm dyspraxic, I have to think about my joints. So fishy oils is good, fishy food that doesn't inflame everything. So not processed food, fresh vegetables, try and cook it from scratch, all that all the sort of obvious stuff, really.
When you're not cooking, where are some of your favourite restaurants?
Oh, I will eat anywhere. I like a good greasy spoon.
Okay.
Really like a proper good greasy spoon. Usually, where they have the frothy coffee machine, because it's been there since God was a boy. And they do a really good cheese omelette and a great salad. There's a great little place in Eastbourne. Now I can't remember the name. Anyway, I like a good greasy spoon. I love Middle Eastern food. There's a great little range of restaurants called Ev and Taz, which are in central London. So it's the same company. There's one called Ev, and then there's a whole load called Taz. And it's sort of
like I've been to Taz or one.
Yeah, I'm sure you will have. There's sort of Turkishy, Mediterranean. Yeah. But what's so great is you can take everybody there with any dietary requirement,
and everyone's sorted.
And everybody is sorted.
Yeah.
So I like places that have a space for everybody to eat as well. And there's because I'm in South London, we are blessed with a whole range of African foods, Portuguese foods, Spanish, Italian, Indian, Pakistani. There's such a range.
The food diversity in South London, in Brixton especially,
it's fantastic, isn't it?
It's incredible.
I feel very well catered for here. And then we've got all the brilliant places like Brixton Whole Food Shop, which nearly went under, but hasn't. Woohoo!
I finished with a few quickfire questions. So,
okay.
This podcast is sponsored by Gorillas. So if you were stuck at home and you had to whip up a meal, what are the 3 ingredients you are going to order?
It's going to have to be broccoli, garlic, and have I got chili in or not?
I'll let you have chili already in the
Okay,
cupboard.
so it's going to be broccoli, red onions, and
Ooh,
garlic.
okay. That's three very versatile ingredients, may I say. What is the craziest food you've ever eaten?
Do you know, I don't do crazy food because I'm really scared of it. You know, when people do bush tucker trials,
Nope.
a food that I don't understand is anything with salted caramel.
Okay.
I think it's the devil. No, I don't want salt in my pudding. I don't
Do
want
you
it.
not think it cuts through though?
No, it just all I can taste is salt. So get off my
Oh,
pudding. No, I don't mind sweet and savoury. You can give me, grilled goat's cheese on mango all day long. It's delish. I have no problem with that. Salted caramel. So that would be a crazy. That would be a
That
crazy
is
food.
brilliant. That's one of the best answers I've ever had. Okay, what's been your most memorable meal?
Gosh, this is so weird. It's a meal in New York.
Okay.
And it's not even about the food. It's about being in this tiny. It's on my honeymoon, and it's about being in this tiny little restaurant called Home, which was, I think it was in Soho. I mean, it was tiny. It probably seated 10 people, and had green, pale. See, I don't remember the food, but I remember the decor. Had pale green, sort of wooden slatted walls. And it sort of looked like it should have come out of a shaker tradition or something. And the food was really simple vegetable. Everything was really simple. Everything about it was plain and simple and delicious. The flavors were so, the carrots were so carroty, and the peas were so peaish.
Peaish.
Peay. Everything was just, the flavors were sharp and vivid, and yeah, it felt
exploded in your mouth.
Yeah, everything about it was super fresh. So that's not even a food. That's not even a food. It's the whole feeling of being in the place. It's also
about the experience. I think that's what I always sort of explain to people. It may not be about the food. It could be where you were or who you were with, and that's a beautiful answer because you're on your honeymoon with your husband. So my favorite snack of all time is a packet of crisps. What is your favorite flavor of crisps and why?
I like cracked black pepper.
Okay. Kind of like a kettle chip, salt and cracked black pepper?
Yes.
Okay.
I like it because I love crisps. I mean, I like a plain Golden Wonder, but
gosh, Golden Wonders.
Golden Wonder crisps.
Jeez, that's a blast from the past.
I am old.
Wow.
But I
remember them.
I like the pepperiness of I like the pepperiness of having the cracked black pepper and crisp. I'm all about. I will put, I'll put chili or pepper on anything. Ice cream.
Me too.
Fruit. Anything.
Yeah.
So to have that on a crisp, and I like it because it's not flavored. I don't like extra flavor. I like the plainness of the crisp, well cooked with the black pepperiness.
Okay. What food sums up happiness for you?
Sherry trifle. It's alcohol, cream, and fruit. I mean,
yeah. What more do you need in life, quite frankly?
I really love. Don't know why. I did the Great British Menu banquet. I was on it for the banquet, luckily, and they did a cherry trifle, and it had miso in the chocolate spongy bit. I was like, miso. It was delicious.
Oh, okay.
I was so surprised because it's nearly veering into the salted caramel territory for me, frankly. But I don't know what it was. Maybe it wasn't too much, but there was something really interesting. So I think maybe I have to try and expand my sherry trifle game slightly.
Maybe. Final question. Live to eat or eat to live?
I don't know what that means. So hang on. So eat to live, that means food is fuel.
It's also how you want to take it. It's completely up to you.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a bit of a philosophical one.
It is. I think I'm eat to live, where it means food is fuel. I'm not a massive obsessive foodie. Food is fuel. But I am very fussy about what that fuel is.
Beautifully said. Adjoa, it has been an absolute pleasure. You are actually very inspirational, and I wish you all the best with all of your endeavours
Hannah.
in the next, coming year. And if you want to follow Adjoa on social media, which you should, she is found at Adjoa.Andoh. Until next time, bye guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you love what you hear, please subscribe and review. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Crazy Sexy Food and check out the Crazy Sexy Food YouTube channel. Until next time, bye.